She looked him in the eyes and said it without blinking. I want him dead, and I want her dead too. Find someone who can make it happen. That's not a line from a movie. That's not a scene from a Netflix series. That is what a New York City police officer, a woman who swore an oath to protect and serve, said to the man sitting across from her. The man she claimed to love. The man who at that exact moment was secretly wearing a wire for the FBI. How does a decorated cop end up plotting a double murder? How does a love story turn into a federal sting operation? And how does a fake crime scene, broken glass, and a staged dead body bring the whole thing crashing down? This is the story of Valerie, and I promise you, you have never heard anything like this before. Let's go back to where it all started. Queens, New York, 2017. Where are you watching from right now? Drop your city in the comments. I'm genuinely curious where my people are. Valerie is 32 years old. She's a police officer on Long Island, New York. And on paper, her life looks pretty put together. She's got a badge, a husband named Isaiah, and a whole career built around upholding the law. But Valerie has always operated by her own rules. One afternoon in 2017, she's on patrol in Queens, cruising through a residential neighborhood, when she spots something that gets her attention. A man, standing in his driveway, washing his car in the afternoon sun. His name is John. Now most cops drive past and keep moving. Valerie pulls over. She introduces herself. John thinks she's attractive. She definitely thinks he's attractive. They talk, they flirt, they exchange numbers, and then Valerie drives away back to her husband, back to her marriage, back to the life she's about to blow up. Because here's the thing, Valerie doesn't slow down for anything once she decides she wants it. Within weeks, she and John are sneaking around the city. Hotels, late nights, secret meetups. This isn't a casual fling. It escalates fast. At some point, they get matching tattoos on their left hands. 2 words, till death. And John gets her name tattooed on his body. Till death. You'll understand later just how literal that was about to get. Now, everything about this relationship should have been a red flag. The sneaking around, the secrecy, the fact that Valerie was a married woman with a badge and a gun who was now deeply emotionally invested in someone else's man. But the real problem started when John introduced Valerie to his teenage daughter. Something about that girl set Valerie off from day one. And we're not talking about a little jealousy or mild tension at the dinner table. Valerie genuinely could not stand this kid. She thought John spent too much money on her. Designer shoes, handbags, makeup, all the things teenage girls care about. She thought he paid her too much attention, too many texts, too many check-ins. In Valerie's mind, every dollar John spent on his daughter was a dollar he wasn't spending on her. Every moment he gave to that girl was a moment he was taking from her. John knew Valerie was jealous. He tried to keep the peace. He tried not to poke the bear. One evening, they're hanging out together, and John's phone lights up. Valerie's eyes go straight to it. Who's texting you? It was just an email. She knew it wasn't an email. It was his daughter, and something in her snapped. Valerie reached for her service weapon, her department-issued firearm, pointed it directly at John, and said, "If you ever lie to me again, I will blow your head off." John reported her immediately. And to their credit, the NYPD took it seriously. They placed Valerie on modified duty. No more patrol, no more streets. She was reassigned to monitor security camera footage. They also took away her gun. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. If this story already has you shook, smash that like button right now, because I promise you, we are just getting started. Around this same time, Valerie's marriage to Isaiah was quietly disintegrating. The details get messy here. They get into a major argument at some point, and Isaiah allegedly slaps her phone out of her hand. He ends up getting arrested on a domestic violence charge. He maintains he did nothing wrong. It honestly sounds like two people who had been falling apart for a long time, and this was just the moment everything finally broke. Meanwhile, John had reached his own breaking point. He ended things with Valerie, and considering she'd recently pointed a loaded gun at his face, that decision makes a lot of sense. But John didn't just walk away quietly. He went to Isaiah. He sat down with Valerie's husband, confessed the entire affair, and apologized for his part in it. That same year, Isaiah filed for divorce. And Valerie, suddenly single, suddenly off patrol, suddenly without her gun or her marriage or her side relationship completely unraveled. She started calling John constantly, harassing him, threatening him and his daughter. Her idea of winning him back, apparently, was making his life miserable enough that he'd come crawling back just to make it stop. John filed a restraining order. She violated it, over and over and over again. John had her arrested. They went to court. John stood on the witness stand to testify against her, and then couldn't go through with it. He told the judge he'd made the whole thing up, that she never violated the order, that he was wrong. Valerie walked, and then they got back together. I genuinely need to know, what would you have done in John's position? Be honest. Drop it in the comments. If you thought things couldn't get more chaotic, they moved in together. Valerie was now under the same roof as John, which also meant she was under the same roof as John's teenage daughter. The girl she despised. The girl she felt had stolen John's attention, his money, and his love. On top of that, Valerie was knee-deep in her divorce proceedings with Isaiah. Anyone who's been through a divorce knows it is slow, exhausting, expensive, and emotionally brutal. For Valerie, a woman who, as we've already established, does not handle frustration well, this process was grinding her down day by day. She was getting darker, more volatile, more fixated. And then, in 2019, something shifted. One night, Valerie told John what she was thinking. She said it plainly, almost casually. Isaiah, her soon-to-be ex-husband, needed to die. She wanted to hire someone to kill him. John didn't take her seriously. People say crazy things when they're angry. He figured she was venting. But she kept bringing it up. And then one day she added something new to the plan. She wanted them to kill his daughter too. That's when John knew she wasn't venting anymore. A woman who had already pointed a gun at him. A woman who had violated a restraining order repeatedly. A woman whose rage had been building for 2 straight years was now sitting in his house, telling him she wanted to hire a hitman to murder his child. John made a decision. He told her he'd help. He smiled and nodded and played along. And then he went straight to the FBI. Don't you dare click away, because what the feds do next is the kind of thing you only see in movies. Stay with me. Let's pause here for a second and appreciate what John just did. This woman had pulled a gun on him. She had harassed and threatened him for months. She had violated a court order multiple times. He had lied in court to protect her. He had taken her back. He was living with her. And now he was walking into a federal building to report her to the FBI. That takes nerve. The FBI listened carefully. And then they gave John a task. Go back home. Act normal. Keep her talking. And start recording everything. So John went home. To Valerie. To the woman who wanted his daughter dead. And he played the role of the supportive, cooperative boyfriend. Yeah, babe. Let's figure this out. Who do you think we should use? He wore a wire. He kept his phone recording. He let her talk. And Valerie, either completely oblivious or completely unhinged, maybe both, talked freely. She laid out the entire plan. 1 hitman, 2 targets. Isaiah first, then John's daughter. She wanted her run over by a car. Think about that for a second. She didn't just want these people gone. She had specific methods in mind. She was logistics planning a double murder in her living room, while the man across from her was feeding every word to federal agents. John kept his composure. He told her he'd find someone to make it happen. Meanwhile, the FBI was already building the most elaborate part of this entire case. They needed to catch her in the act. They needed her to actually commit, to hand over money, to give the order. To do that, they needed to bring in one more person, Isaiah, the man she wanted dead. Federal agents sat down with Isaiah and told him the truth. Your ex-wife has taken out a contract on your life. He'd known things were bad. The divorce had been ugly. The tension between them was real, but he didn't know it was this bad. He didn't know he was living on borrowed time. The FBI told him they had a plan. They were going to set a trap. And they needed him to do something most people would never agree to. They needed him to fake his own death. Isaiah said yes. The agents drove him out to a remote location, somewhere isolated, somewhere quiet, somewhere far from prying eyes. They positioned his car. They scattered broken glass across the ground around it, the kind of shattered debris you'd see after a shooting. And then Isaiah climbed into the driver's seat and slumped forward over the steering wheel, like he'd just been shot. The FBI photographed everything. The car, the glass, Isaiah's motionless body in the front seat. A staged crime scene, constructed by law enforcement, designed to fool one woman. Then came the knock on the door. Police officers who were in on the operation arrived at Valerie's home. She answered. They told her there had been an incident. that her soon-to-be ex-husband Isaiah had been found, that he was dead. Valerie's reaction? She performed. She gasped. She put on the whole show. The shock, the disbelief, the grief of a woman who had just lost someone. The cops delivered the news and left. Then John came to her. He showed her the photo. Isaiah slumped over the wheel, glass everywhere. It looked completely real. And Valerie looked at that photo, a photo of a man she had paid to have killed, or so she believed, and felt relief. John told her there was a complication. The hitman was asking for an extra $3,000 to handle the second target, the daughter. Without hesitation, Valerie agreed. $3,000. Sure, do it. And then she said something that revealed exactly how her mind worked. She told John they needed to delete everything, all the texts, all the messages, clean it all up, just in case someone came looking. She was a cop. She knew how investigations worked. She knew what evidence looked like. She was already covering her tracks. What she didn't know was that John was wearing a wire. Every single word she'd just said, the agreement, the money, the order to destroy evidence, had been captured on recording. The door flew open. Federal agents poured into the room, and Valerie, the woman with a till death tattoo on her hand, the woman who had once sworn to serve and protect, the woman who had planned a double murder from the comfort of her own home, was placed in handcuffs. Subscribe right now if you're new here. I drop cases like this every single week, and you do not want to miss what's coming next. Valerie took a plea deal. 4 years in federal prison. 4 years. For plotting 2 murders. For hiring what she believed was a hitman. For ordering the deaths of her ex-husband and a teenage girl whose only crime was being loved by a man Valerie wanted all to herself. 4 years. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that feels like enough. Because it doesn't. When you look at what she did, the planning, the obsession, the sheer coldness of agreeing to have a child run over by a car, 4 years feels like a footnote. But here's what gets me most about this case. Valerie wasn't some random person off the street. She was a law enforcement officer. She had training, access, and institutional knowledge. She knew exactly how crimes were investigated. She knew what left evidence. She knew how to cover tracks. And she still thought she could get away with it. That's not just arrogance. That's delusion. And Isaiah? He faked his own death for the federal government and helped put away the woman who wanted him gone. If that's not the most surreal thing you've heard this week, I don't know what is. What I keep coming back to is the tattoo. Till death. She got those words inked into her skin as a symbol of devotion, a declaration. She loved this man so completely that she marked her body with it. And that same obsessive, consuming, all-or-nothing love is exactly what pushed her to plan the murder of a teenager. Obsession doesn't start as something dark. It starts as passion, as intensity, as the feeling that this person is everything to you. And then for some people, it curdles. It becomes possessive, controlling, violent. Valerie's story isn't just about a dirty cop or a federal sting. It's about what happens when love stops being about the other person and starts being about power. She wanted John. She wanted all of him. And anyone standing in the way, a divorce, a daughter, an ex-husband, was a problem to be eliminated. That's not love. That's something else entirely. 4 years for 2 murder-for-hire plots. Does that feel like justice to you? I want to know what you think. Drop it in the comments below.